Now I'm only at episode 61, and there's always the possibility that there will be some things I'm not familiar with, but I think Rumiko Takahashi might be the most represented creator on the PC Engine. She was one of the most popular comics creators in Japan throughout the 80s and 90s, and there are 5 PC Engine games based on her work. And Maison Ikkoku is a bit of a strange place to start adapting her work to the system. This was originally an adventure game for PCs, and it was released at the peak of Maison Ikkoku's popularity in 1986. Still, they ported it to a console just in time to coincide with the release of a movie that acted as the conclusion to the television series, but that port was to the Famicom in 1988. That Famicom port is the best known and most popular version of the game, too. And here's the PC Engine version of Maison Ikkoku, coming along a full year after all the media was done, when the popularity of Rumiko Takahashi's next series was skyrocketing, and 3 years after the game's original release. The source material for Maison Ikkoku feels a bit unlikely for a video game adaptation in the 1980s, because it's a romantic comedy. The titular Maison is a small boarding house in Tokyo, where would-be university student Yusaku Godai gets hired as a handyman while he makes his second attempt at getting into school. He falls in love with the boarding house's manager, Kyoko, who took up the position after being widowed just a few months after her marriage. And of course, the rest of the boarding house residents get in the way of their relationship, cause chaos, and make Yusaku's life miserable. The plot of the game is... okay, this one's a little tricky. You see, the plot's not really developed in the game, which is strange for an adventure game. Fortunately, the manual has an extensive prologue to tell you what's happening. The first half of the prologue is about the first 15 minutes of gameplay. Then there's one line that references the goal of the game in a roundabout way, and then it goes on to tell you that the story unfolds in a confusing manner just like the original. So, not a lot of help. What you're supposed to be doing is first getting access to Kyoko's room, then spotting that she has a photograph of someone, and then trying to find that photograph afterwards. This is a menu-driven adventure game, and the action takes place in a fairly small location. The boarding house only has 6 rooms, so even with all the connecting areas, there's only about 25 locations in the game. The way most of the adventure plays out is you take one step toward Kyoko, one of the residents of the house gets in your way, you resolve their problem, and then you take the next step. The commands available in the menu shift around depending the location, and there's often multiple screens of commands that you can choose from. This is one of those games where you have to try commands repeatedly in order to get the game to progress, but it's also a relatively short adventure game. There are a few ways to get a game over, particularly if you wind up in a high place and then choose the command to jump off. You can save your progress by using either of the restrooms in the house, though this is also one of those games where the password is absurdly long. That is 57 characters for those of you who don't want to count them. Maison Ikkoku was the first PC Engine game from Microcabin. They were an absolutely enormous publisher of PC games in Japan, but they struggled with the transition to console games. We're going to see them a few more times as I go through this project, bringing over some of their more popular computer games. As a PC Engine game, Maison Ikkoku doesn't seem to have found much success. Most of the comments I could find online about it were people saying that they didn't know that there was a PC Engine version. Even the Famicom version was obscure, but somehow this took it to another level. Now, of the 2 console Maison Ikkoku games, I'd definitely say the PC Engine version is the better of the 2. Besides looking better, I think the PC Engine version does a better job of presenting what's going on in the adventure. At the very least, you'll actually see the items on the screen that you're interacting with. As an adventure game, I don't think Maison Ikkoku is really great, but I have to give it some bonus points just for the unique theming at the time. We won't be seeing a lot of romance in games for a few more years yet.